What's happening? Welcome to Real Ones. Logan Murdock here, live from Oklahoma City. I'm here with Howard Beck. What a game 5 was. Just the Haliburton injury, the J-Dub coming of age, the timely stops from SGA, the defense from Chet Holmgren, the foul trouble Miles Turner got himself in. We talked about it all. We also talked about the Desmond Bane trade. Man, what the hell were the Orlando Magic thinking giving up all those picks? I know they had to get up off of KCP, but how you give up all those picks? Jeez, we're going to talk about the picks discourse. We're going to talk about the overall Oklahoma City vibe and just how loud that arena was. Me and Tyler Parker will be reacting off of Game 6 on Thursday night. So be on the lookout for that. That is a special edition of Real Ones. That should be a fun one. We got a lot to talk about today on Real Ones with me, Logan Murdock, and Howard Mother effing Beck next.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. On the basketball court, the best players know when to pass. And off the court, you still need teammates who are there when it counts. That's where State Farm comes in. With agents and online tools to help you find the coverage you need, you can focus on what really matters, whether that's hitting game winners or just getting through the day. State Farm, with the assist. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability and eligibility vary by state.
What's poppin'? Real Ones. Logan Murdock here. Howard motherfucking Beck there. Live from Oklahoma City. We want to do this in person, but it just didn't work out that way. So we're kind of like, I'm in my hotel. Howard's in his hotel. We're figuring this out as it goes. How much sleep did you get last night, Howard?
Like 2 hours more than you did, apparently. I was able to duck out earlier than you because you were writing and I was not. I've got some more long-term stuff working on. But it's the finals and we have what's called media hospitality. And you walk back into the hotel, all your media friends are hanging out, drinking, having some late food. I mean, I had to go make the rounds. That's what I do. I'm a man of the people, Logan. You know this.
You had to indulge. I understand. I didn't realize how much of a man of the people you actually are. Like, I mean, I know you're head of the PBWA and all of the yada, 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 but like, it's one thing to like see it on emails, but it's a whole other thing to see it in person. Like you were out here just locked in, talking to everybody. Adam Silver's over here, such and such is over here. You're just in the mix, man.
Kissing babies, shaking hands. That's for me.
All right, man.
I wish we could have done this in person, though. It's kind of a bummer. We did talk about this. We tried to figure out the logistics with Tori. Like, and just like you and I are in separate hotels. Both of us in very like sparse rooms with not exactly a lot of desk space to for this stuff. So we've got 2 cans and a string stretched across a 3-block stretch of downtown Oklahoma City, and we're gonna make this work.
We were really excited after we saw Bill and Zach Lowe do their pod in person in Indiana, and we're like, yeah, let's replicate that. And then we realized, like, oh yeah, we don't have like, it's not in the budget to have a suite like Bill does. So we couldn't make that happen. But anyways, the Game 5 of the NBA Finals was a doozy, right? I mean, the Thunder take it. J-Dub was the story of the game. We're going to get to him in a second, but there's a whole bunch of storylines. There's Haliburton's injury, finals MVP discussion. Maybe we'll talk a little Desmond Bane for 45 minutes because that's what Howard wants to do for some reason. But let's start with J-Dub, right? 40 points. It seems like his breakout game in a lot of ways, but specifically in the finals. I was trying to find like a good comp for this type of game and this type of coming of age. I kind of thought, I was trying to shoehorn Kobe Game 4 of the 2000 NBA Finals also against the Indiana Pacers, but I felt like that was a little bit too shoehorned in, but it felt like an arrival, and we don't get many of those type of arrival games in the finals from third-year guys. But it was really impressive to see him. He got into the lane, got his shots, Really, the game finally kind of slowed down for him in the postseason, or specifically in this finals. What do you think of his performance, and what does it do for the MVP discussion? Right, that was Shai's going into this game, and it seems a little murky, but like he put J-Dub put his step on this particular series.
He was awesome. The NBA put out their post game notes. He's the 5th youngest player to score 40 or more points in a finals game. 5th youngest to score 40 plus in a finals game. So he's 24. The only guys who were younger than him to score 40 plus in a finals game: Magic Johnson, who was 20 years old in Game 6 in 1980. Rick Barry, 23 years old with 3 games of 40 plus in 1967. Russell Westbrook, Thunder legend. Russell Westbrook, 23 in Game 4 in 2012. Jerry West, 23 years old in Game 2, 1962. So there you go. Magic Johnson, Rick Barry, Russell Westbrook, Jerry West, and now Jalen Williams as the youngest ever with 40 plus. That's a pretty freaking good list, man. Like that's rare air. That's awesome. He was awesome, and he was awesome in real time. This wasn't one of those, like occasionally in the NBA, it's like it'd be a stretch to say there's a quiet 40. So there's a guy will have a quiet 25, even a quiet 30. Once you get to 40, it's kind of hard for it to be quiet anyway. But like every point of this felt like it was a loud ass 40. That's a loud ass arena, by the way, too. Like you and I, like, we don't hit every arena anymore. So I feel, I don't know that I'm qualified to declare this, but it's got to be the loudest arena in the NBA. It was definitely,
absolutely.
And this is no disrespect to the fans in Indy who have been fantastic, but Oklahoma is another level. And every time I'm just like, I cannot think straight. It's so fucking loud in here. So the Pacers even mentioned it. Like they've said it.
I hadn't been to OKC since 2019. So, and never a game of this magnitude at OKC. I was sitting next to Mark Spears of Anscape, and thank God he gave me some earplugs, and even that, my head was ringing. Like I could not. Yeah. I kind of needed a moment at halftime to where it was like I didn't get back up until like I think 10 minutes left in the third quarter, because like I just needed a moment to just kind of gather myself, because my head was ringing and it hadn't felt like that before. It felt like, I don't know, man. I've never heard anything that loud before. I'm sure maybe like, I know some people in our mentions and they say, well, Sacramento in like 2000 and such and such and such. And I'm like, okay, all right, guys, I get it.
All right, Sacramento was really fucking loud back then, by the way.
But like, I don't know any other comp to this, right? Like even for playoff intensity and playoff crowds are one thing. Maybe Oracle in 2007 or 2013, or maybe in that early run was probably a comp, but it was a sustained yelling, and I was like, are they piping noise in? No, that's just people yelling. No. That's just people and they're on top of you, and then they have just oh my goodness, it comes in waves.
It's organic there, and it's sustained. It almost never comes down. There's no dead spots. Part of that's because like the Pacers couldn't shut them up either, because they just didn't have the game in them last night to do it. But man, they were awesome. But yeah, just Jalen Williams, whether he was, scoring from the outside, it was mostly attacking. And it's like, it's funny with Jalen Williams, because even like in postseason balloting, there were people who were like, how did you have him as this on this spot? He's a guard. And it's like, actually, no, he's a forward. Lou Dort's always listed as the guard, and Jalen Williams is a forward. And it's funny because you look at him and you think he's your standard like 6'6" shooting guard type size, but he's a big 6'6", and he's a long 6'6", and he just, when he's attacking the rim, it's like he's 6'9". And they just couldn't keep him out of the paint. They not in the half court, not in transition. He was incredible. He was aggressive. He was super confident. Again, for a guy who's 24, he's not playing like a guy who's in his first finals. Like none of them are. Like that's part of the story of this series, right? Like the Thunder, they weren't rattled after losing game 1 virtually at the buzzer. They weren't rattled at being down 2-1 with a kind of a dud of a game 3 in Indy. They're just never down. They're never rattled. And here they are, 1 win shy of the championship.
That was crazy. Like you talk about the margins of a finals. Like even in game, we were talking pregame. I think it was Amino Hassan, just about the how game 4 just kind of was one of those games where they're on the brink, and then they just take control of the series in the final 2 minutes Like that's kind of unprecedented in that way. I think I want to stay on J-Dub for a second because I feel like his game is perfect, a perfect complement to SGA, but not just because of it game-wise, but like we talk about the crowd, right? And last night, he has a game specific to that crowd where he can galvanize that group. There's a lot of players, I feel like, in the league, and I think that you brought up Russell Westbrook, and I think he was another type of player for that OKC crowd where his play can galvanize it in a way that, like, SGA is just steady. He's just a steady guy. Not to say he doesn't make exciting plays, but he's very much a steady guy. There was a and one, I think, to start the third quarter from J-Dub where he gets the crowd going. He's playing with the crowd. He's amping it all the way up, and that makes a 5-point lead from OKC feel like a 20-point lead. And that was something that the Thunder needed throughout the game last night, because even with Haliburton's injury, which we'll get into in a second, even with Pascal Siakam hitting timely shots, it felt like even when the Pacers got close, they didn't have a chance because it didn't feel like they could overcome not only the Thunder, but that OKC crowd that J-Dub was just galvanizing time after time with his play.
This was such a weird game, Logan. I think we talked about this briefly afterward, where it was like, even in the first half, the Thunder were clearly in control early, and they get up by 10, by 12, maybe they get up by 14 or something at some point. It felt like they were up by 20. And then there were times that they were up by 18, and it felt like it was only 6 because the Pacers had been coming at them hard. And the Pacers just will not die, and they got it down to 2 at some point, maybe early in the fourth, and then they just committed that flurry of turnovers. I think they had 8 turnovers in the fourth quarter. This thing was I felt to me the entire night like the Thunder were dominating the game, and yet the Pacers were somehow still lingering with Haliburton's bad calf, with Haliburton barely scoring.
We got a TJ McConnell game.
We had a TJ McConnell 5-minute stretch. I don't know if it was a TJ McConnell game, but
Put some respect on TJ McConnell's name, dude.
It was a TJ points. Quarter. You know what? You know what? I'm just going to say this. It was a TJ McConnell game. I'm saying that for one person only, and he might edit our stories. So shout out to TJ McConnell and Matt Dollinger.
Matt Dollinger I've been slacking him because he's been editing my piece that's going to come out on theringer.com right now. He is just beside himself with sadness right now.
our editor who may or may not have grown up in Indiana as a big Pacers fan, and definitely loves him some TJ McConnell. So yes, it's the TJ McConnell game. I don't even care that they lost. It's the TJ McConnell game. That's canon. Yeah. No, let's get back to the finals MVP. Enough TJ McConnell talk. I mean, if you want to have it, he's in the running for finals MVP, right? I mean, he's right there.
He's going to be right up there with Jerry West as the second player ever to win a finals MVP on a losing team. So, forget LeBron, forget all those other people. Let's put TJ McConnell in there. But let's talk about finals MVP right now, because we talked about this briefly after the game as we were waiting for Thunder players to go to pressers. So if you look at the stats, SGA wins, right? He's averaging 30. He's shooting a better percentage. But when we talk about this, the argument for J-Dub, this is what we talked about last night, was the signature game argument, right? Now, SGA had the signature game in Game 4. This was a signature game in Game 5 for J-Dub. What gives in Game 6 to – it's because no matter what the stats is, it's pretty much of a narrative award, the finals MVP, right? It can be. Who is Game 6 not only – or however this goes, not only a competition, not only for the title, but for the finals MVP for both of those guys, should the Thunder win?
So the debate started in earnest last night, I think, for the first time, right? Which is appropriate, right? And it's in a 2-2 series. You're not really having this discussion, but you start hearing chatter about it last night. People start talking about it a little on social media last night. There's 11 voters for finals MVP, and you don't know who they are until the NBA hands out those ballots in the fourth quarter of the championship game. So we have no idea. So before anybody overreacts to anything you and I are about to say, I just want to stipulate neither of us are probably voting. They give it to folks who were definitely there for all 7 games.
I'm going home after this.
All 6 or whatever.
This, brother.
Yeah, you're in and out.
I'm not getting it.
Yeah. So we don't know who's voting. I think it's damn close right now. I do think SGA has the lead based partially on the role he plays for that team and partially on the higher per game stats and all that. Signature games are a tricky thing. I do think that when you're in a 2-2 series and the series is hanging in the balance, and SGA had a great game last night, but Jalen Williams had the game last night, right? So I think that will linger in people's minds. I do think okay, they're going back to Indy for game 6, and it may just be who has the bigger game 6 at this stage. I think they're both worthy. So real quick, the rundown. SGA in the series is averaging 32 points, 4.5 rebounds, 5 assists. J-Dub is 26 points, so 6 points per game less. 5.6 rebounds, so slightly more rebounds. 4.2 assists, which, for the guy who's not the quote-unquote point guard of the team, he's not that far behind SGA for assists in the series. Shooting splits, SGA shooting 47% from the field, 30% from 3, not great. 92% from the line, and it's 46 of 50 on free throws. He's doing what he does. He's getting the line a ton. J-Dub, 45% from the field, 32% on threes, also not great. 83% on free throws. What did I say? 32% on threes, and then 83% on free throws. I may have misspoke. SGA's got 12 steals to J-Dub's 4. SGA's got 9 blocks to 0 for J-Dub. SGA's got 15 turnovers to J-Dub's 11. Also, by the way, just field goal attempts in the series. So just who's been shouldering more of the load, as you would expect. SGA 116 to 94. J-Dub's also had a lot of defense. I mean, they've both taken their turns on Tyrese Haliburton.
Yeah.
I think J-Dub is kind of the bigger defensive force among the two of them on this team. But again, SGA's blocks are off the charts.
This is another thing that I was thinking about last night when I'm thinking about SGA's case. J-Dub had the great scoring night and he did play really good defense. But there were times where there were lulls within the Oklahoma City offense, both offensively and defensively. You talk about the runs that the Pacers would make. And I look back on it. Every time the Pacers made a run, SGA was the calming force for that Oklahoma City offense, right? He had a great block, or I think they went. I got to check. I put it in the story, but when Pascal Siakam gets the lead down to 4, there's a hockey assist from Shea, right? When I think McConnell gets it down to 2. There's an SGA 3 to respond, right? Or there's a key block from SGA at that time, right? He was really that calming force. He really catapulted them to a win because when they got it down to 2, like you were saying, SGA makes the hockey assist to Jalen for that 3, and then they go on a 15-4 run to close out the game. It was one of those things where he may not have scored as much, but his impact was felt. I think he had 4 blocks last night. SGA was all over the floor. In a way that he may not have had the scoring output, and he was not the story of the game, but I feel like he facilitated the story of the game happening, if you will.
Yes. Yeah, and part of what makes SGA the MVP of the league during the regular season, part of what makes him one of the greatest players in the league right now, he's a guy who can lead the league in scoring every year if he wants to, but he empowers his teammates, right? And the Thunder are far from a one-man show. It is their overall talent and depth that we've been praising throughout. And Jalen Williams doesn't get to do what he does without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being, supportive and a facilitator and a guy who doesn't need to dominate the ball or dominate the offense on every possession. And so, he deserves a ton of credit for making room for that, being a great teammate, being a great leader. And you've heard that throughout his time in Oklahoma, that's kind of the way he's wired. And it's part of what makes this team great. Back to the MVP discussion too. So I started looking all right, because it felt like Jalen Williams had led a bunch of games in scoring now. It's actually split. He's led them twice in 5 games. Shai's led them 3 times. and they each did it once in a loss. So like Shea's highest scoring game was 38 in game 1, which they lost. A game that, by the way, like again, like
they were the better team most of that game.
They were the better team for like all but about a handful of minutes of that game, like down to this. And he's the reason. So like that very easily could have gone the other way. So he scores 38 in the first game. That was team high. He has a team high 34 in the second game, which was obviously a win. Game 3, which they lost, Jalen Williams has 26. Shea has 24. And then Shea led in game 4 with 35 to Jalen Williams' 27. And then it goes Jalen Williams with the 40 last night to Shea's 31. So like, I think it's pretty close right now. I'm not sure which. I think I probably lean slightly Shea for Finals MVP at the moment, but it's really hard to do that with the very, very fresh memory of Jalen Williams' Game 5, because that was freaking awesome.
See, that's why I say it's a narrative award, right? You just put the stats out there, but it's about the feeling that you get in the moment based on the performance that has happened, right?
Depends on the year. Like sometimes it's definitive, right? Like any year that LeBron's team won it, you're pretty damn sure LeBron is the whole freaking reason, right?
Yeah.
I think there are years where it's clear, and I think there are years where you got to kind of get into the stats and like which game kind of tipped the series. Is it, and was it bigger than the stats? Was there anything else to take into consideration? Like there are years where you're right. There's some narrative influence. I think obviously the Iguodala year is probably a prime example, but
this is more like a recency one though, right? Because Shea's game, you could make the argument in game 4 was like a harder get, right? Because they're the Pacers have winning the entire game, and then Shea just turns it on right down the stretch, right? Setting the stage for J-Dub. Not to say it was a hard game. I mean, it was an easier game to pull out because game 5s are just swing games that are hard. But the balancing act of what are we going to choose as the better game? If you're going to choose a better game, like you're probably going to choose the flashier one or the one that you most recently saw, and that's what I'm taking. This is not a narrative award this year. This is probably like a recency, like whoever wins back to back to back, right? Like it's such an interesting way to look at it this year, because I mean they're kind of at an impasse right now when you look at just the games that they've had in this series. It's I've just also been blown away just like from the team, because coming back to Oklahoma City, I'm constantly thinking about how this team stacks up with the KD, Westbrook, Harden years, right? And those comparisons are inevitably going to be there. But I've just been blown away by the chemistry of this OKC team, right? Just like, Chet after the game was like, we have to give flowers to J-Dub, right? And it was in earnest. Same with SGA. Like it seemed like they were really, really excited in a very young, earnest type of way for their teammate. And in a league full of egos, and a league full of, I need to get mine, I need to get paid, I need to do all these. This team has like great AAU, like we're on the road together vibes, where they're just on the road and they're just kicking it, and they're really trying to see, each other do great. And, you talk to some of the OKC officials, like, They talk about how this is an environment in Shea's ilk, right? Like you talk about a guy like Chet Holmgren who came in with a little bit of an ego, but he's just kind of just falling in line under Shea, right? You talk about J-Dub balling out, but like this is still in large part Shea's team. But the chemistry is just amazing, and I don't think it's forced. I think these guys really love each other. That's so rare in this NBA, and you kind of have two teams that have that, with the Pacers and the Thunder. And I've just been blown away by just like team camaraderie after years of just seeing I don't know, just the locker room that I've come from, Howard, and just how it can occasionally get a little so it was just good to see like just a cool little environment where like they're just so young and they're just so earnest and just so happy to see each other shine. Yeah,
there's like a young innocence to them, right? Like egos and contracts and petty whatever bullshit hasn't gotten in the way yet, and maybe never will, right? They don't all have to go down that road, I think that goes to too, though. Like we sometimes, I'll say this, like we joke about it. Like this team is a little bit feels bland at times. Not the way they play basketball. Just like you're not getting a lot. Like they're pretty conservative. They might give you long answers. And by the way, Jalen Williams on the podium is awesome. Like that guy. Like I think I counted 12 questions he took last night. And answered them all pretty elaborately. Like there was only one that he kind of rebuffed a little, and it was about trying to like put in perspective, like is this a coming of age game or like whatever? Where does what does
even
this
that answer was thoughtful though, when he was like, I just can't talk about it right now because I just don't know. I'm so young, and I'm like, wow, this is very very mature answer for a guy in his early 20s.
The shortest answer he gave was still the product of a thoughtful just process where it was like. And he was almost apologetic, like I can get back to you on that one sometime down the road. Like I'm not. So he wasn't saying it in any kind of rude way. He wasn't being curt. But they don't necessarily give away a lot as a team. I think that's kind of a typical Thunder thing. They're kind of like the old Spurs, where it's like we're playing everything close to the vest. But there's like. There's a lot there. You can see there's a lot going on there that they're just not letting you in on, but they're very endearing, right? Like I know people get a little cynical about or a little just jaded about, the group post-game interviews with Nick Gallo from the local network here, and all the yucking it up there. They do it they do it on the national broadcasts too, right? Where it's always like it's never just one guy doing the post-game; it's all of them doing the post-game interview on the court. But there's something endearing to that too. We can't get too dismissive and jaded right off the bat. But yeah, these guys all still like each other and support each other and are having fun together while they're just dominating the crap out of the league. And that's refreshing because yes, you and I have seen some rather tense Warriors championships. And of course, back in the day, I saw some rather tense Laker championships with Shaq and Kobe. And so not every team does it at this level while still liking each other and all being on the same page.
It's early, but like, it seems and to the point about like them being bland. Being out here, I don't necessarily know that I don't think that they're bland necessarily. I think that there's a combination of things. One, they're like, this is like the Gen Z-est team of all time, right? They're always on their phones. They're always just like, sending memes. They're very much the Pinterest generation of a team. But I do think that they're interesting, but I think that they're like kind of closed off just because in the sense of Gen Z just being, having a barrier to the world while also being chronically online, but also they have a, like you said, they have a media staff, which is like, nah, they're not, this isn't happening. Stop.
We don't need to go down that. We don't need to go down that road today, but yeah.
We don't. But I'm just saying that's what it is. But I think that the more of what I'm getting at is they speak to their generation. I wrote a story about Gen Z a couple weeks back, and the Oklahoma City Thunder are the face of whatever this new generation is and how they act. They're very in tune with whatever that is right now. And it's the first time where I feel old watching a team. I feel like I'm getting older. I'm not quite you yet, Beck, but like I'm feeling older. But I feel like this is like the first team where, they're speaking to a younger generation, and that younger generation understands them wholeheartedly, and we're still trying to figure them out. But whoever they're speaking to loud and clearly. And I know I'm getting really philosophical and waxing poetic, but that's what I get from this type of team.
Yeah, it's funny because I think about like, if you grow up in the digital age, it's not just that you're digitally savvy. It's also that you're hyper aware of the fact that everything is being consumed and judged and whatever. And so some of that might just be them being, conservative based on the idea that we know that everything we say and do is going to be, scrutinized to the nth degree. And maybe they're just cautious about it. I think it's mostly just the way they're wired, though. I think it's just it happens to be the personality of the guys that this team drafted or acquired, right? There's not like a big time shit talker on this team or a shit stirrer on this team. There's nobody who's really going to get out there and like.
Lou Dort got some shit starting in him, though. He do got some shit starting in him. Lou Dort, he just fouls the shit out of you. He has some like, I will start some shit if need be. Don't trip.
Yeah, but like I think like if we were ranking guys in the series by like I don't know how emphatic they are on the court in a way, like how much personality they show after they've done something. Like it might, like TJ McConnell might win that award. Actually, it's obviously Tyrese, right? Like Tyrese is the biggest shit stirrer of this postseason. TJ McConnell might be second. Like I don't know how far down the list we have to go before we actually get to the Thunder. They're like they kind of play it close to the vest. They're not out there trying to just like cause issues with the other team or each other or the refs or whatever else. Hell, Carlisle's ranking way ahead of them. Carlisle was all over the refs last night, man. That was a testy Carlisle.
After he got a tech after he defended the refs, which was amazing. It was awesome.
Yes, he goes out of his way to do the Scott Foster like apologia. I've never known how to. I just made it sound like Apollonia. Like he goes out of his way. Did you watch
Purple Rain? Did you watch Purple Rain?
I saw it in the theaters. I saw it in the theaters, Logan. All right. There you go.
Damn. Okay. Well, shit.
So, like, he went out of his way to defend Scott Foster, which, by the way, I'm just going to say it. Y'all can hate me for it. Rick Carlisle's right. And all of you who are like fretting about Scott Foster and like spinning conspiracy theories, you all are wrong. And
the extender.
Yeah, it's all stupid. So yeah, Carlisle goes from that to be like to absolute first quarter meltdown. I was looking at the monitor at one point so I could see when Carlisle was being held back by pretty much like every single member of his staff. And at one point it looked like Jenny Busick went to him to say like, you know, yo, are you gonna be all right?
He's like, I'm good. I'm good.
I could see his like I was reading lips and he was like, I'm all right. Okay. But it was actually like a welfare check going on there in real time.
Howard, sometimes I got to do that with you sometimes. Like, you know, you're going off. It's like during our hour and a half conversations on the phone. I'm like, Howard, you good? I'm good. I'm locked.
I'm all right. Damn it.
I'm good.
Fuck you. I may have done that to you a couple of times too. I'm sorry. So last night, you were in the Thunder press conference primarily. I was in the Pacers press conference primarily. They're in separate rooms. Carlisle, so the very first question to Carlisle was naturally about Haliburton because Haliburton's hurt and, you know, not only had a bad game, but like he had a bad game because he's got a bad calf, which leads to natural curiosity about like, can Haliburton, you know, hold up and make it a bigger impact on game 6? So the first question, of course, to Carlisle is about Haliburton. Second question was about Jalen Williams having a huge game and about the inability to stop him, which again, natural progression of questions. Carlisle's about like a sentence or two into his response on the J-Dub question, the second question, and he goes, nobody's asking about turnovers. We had 23 turnovers for 32 points. That's the game. And so he couldn't wait to talk about the turnovers, which, okay, fine. And I think probably the room would have gotten around to the questions about turnovers. We were only on the second question. And the first one was the obvious one about Haliburton. And the second one was like a pretty, you know, obvious one about Jalen Williams. But like, yeah, Carlisle was in fine Carlisle form last night.
Listen, Rick, I love you. I love watching. You've coached your ass off throughout your career. He's awesome.
He's great.
But I just want to say, Rick, turnovers don't sell sexy hotlines. I mean, headlines, bro. It's just like it doesn't. I'm sorry. Ask Dollinger. It's not like it say, you know, 23 turnovers. That's not going to sell any papers, buddy. That's not going to sell any subs. We got to put some sauce on it.
I mean, they did get close in the fourth, 2-point game or whatever, and then like just a flurry of turnovers. Like I think they had 8 in the fourth quarter.
That is the story of the game, but I'm just saying, like we're trying to sell a fucking fledgling journalism right now, and let's talk about turnovers. That's how it worked.
But also the first two questions were valid, and I think we would have gotten around to it eventually. So, but you know, It just this is more about Carlisle being testy than it is about journalists. Logan, come on.
But he was testy earlier when he was talking about Scott Foster. Our guy Sam Amick wanted to ask a follow up. He's like, I'm not talking about it anymore. I'm like, come on, dude, come on. Oh man. Anyways, let's talk about Haliburton, who calf in the finals, injured his calf early in in this game. Wasn't the same talking, and you know, me and you have you've been around the game longer than I have, been around a minute. Getting a calf injury in this type of environment doesn't spell good things, and anytime you hear calf, depending on the severity, you're kind of like, I don't know what's next. And I don't want, and I'm knocking on wood right now with Haliburton, but like, what can we reasonably expect from him in game 6? He was hobbled throughout the night. He didn't really have his explosiveness throughout game 5. And if I'm looking and I'm quarterbacking this thing, it feels like the Pacers are the most equipped to deal with a game that Haliburton isn't good or effective in more than most teams. But it's still a finals game, right? What gives with Haliburton? What do you think how is this going to affect him the rest of the series? You were in the Pacers presser. I didn't really get to see Haliburton other than what he was doing on the floor. What is the read from Pacerland about what is going on with him at this moment?
Just kind of resigned to the fact that he's not 100% and is not going to be. And you get a lot of the, again, this was Carlisle, a lot of like, oh, everybody's banged up this time of year kind of stuff. But it's like, there's banged up. And then there's like, can't move so well out there. And it's obvious, right? Like Haliburton, I know like his game, we talked about this weeks ago with Raja, like his game is not like, oh, dribble, blow by you kind of thing, right? He's not a blow by type of point guard in general. That's not how he gets his points. It's not how he makes an impact most of the time. But it is, part of his game, part of any guy, who's a primary playmaker is going to be breaking down the defense on some level. And he just wasn't even attacking last night. Like you could see it. And he was noticeably limping out of the arena after game 2 here. And then nevertheless comes back and leads them to a win in game 3. And he played really well in that game. He was okay in 4. And then like last night, it was just really clear. Like, I don't know if he aggravated it. It like, we haven't learned a lot about the nature of the injury or when it was first hurt, maybe re-hurt, all that stuff. So it's just kind of it's the stuff you expect. Carlisle saying everybody's banged up this time of year. Haliburton saying, whatever, I'm playing in game 6 and I'll do better in game 6. There is a 72-hour break built in when you get to this stage of the series, when you get to the 1-1-1 part of the 2-2-1-1-1. Every 2 games span is spaced out by 3 days, basically, right? So they traveled probably first thing last night as soon as they left their media availabilities. They got all day today. There's a practice day tomorrow where no team will even practice. They'll both do film sessions, then they'll meet with the media. And then you got all day Thursday up until game time. So like it's a pretty long stretch. But when I say that, like it just depends on the nature of the injury, right? Like maybe 3 days off is enough to like make him feel better for game 6. Or maybe this is a deeper injury that doesn't heal until weeks off. And it's just a matter of him having to gut it out again. But we don't know enough to know what that means. I mean, you referenced, Kobe's game 4 back in 2000. That was one where, Jalen Rose undercuts him. He turns his ankle like as bad of an ankle sprain as you're going to get, sits an entire game, and then comes back in game 4 when nobody expected him to even play. Like that was a different kind of thing. But an interesting analogy just for finals sake, because like we don't have like serious injuries in the finals too often to reference. I just will say this. If Haliburton's not close to 100%, like I just think they're toast at that point.
Yeah.
He's like, this is an ensemble, right? Tyrese, Haliburton, and Siakam. Those are the 2 tent poles of that offense. And it's a lot of ball movement, and it's a lot of just getting each other open for good shots. And it's, Nesmith attacking at times, Siakam attacking at times. But it's got to start somewhere, and it starts with Haliburton. And you can get a nice 6-minute burst from TJ McConnell here and there, and maybe you get a Nembhard game or whatever, but like someone's got to initiate. And, Tyrese Haliburton's the heart and soul of this team. If he's that limited as he was last night, it's hard to see how they pull this out.
I'm concerned, not only for the injury, but like, it's not like the Pacers play an offense conducive to kind of hiding an injury like that. If it's a lower leg injury, they get up and run, right? And that's going to be something that tests your body. It's so wild that, the Pacers offense has done such a great job of like just keeping the pace in what it is and running guys out of the gym and now it seems like that's kind of the demise of of their own roster right now because they are, expending so much energy. But you're right. Like, I think that this Haliburton injury is just really, really concerning because no matter what his stats say, he is the heart and soul of that offense, right? Where like he gets them up and down the floor. He's the one that facilitates. He's the one that gets guys in position. I mean, they can pray for another TJ McConnell game, but that's not going to have the same effect as a Tyrese Haliburton fully healthy game in the finals, right? Like, this is just not that.
Yeah.
They're going to need a monster game from Siakam. But, dude, when the Thunder turn on their defensive pressure, it is alarming how great, how oh my God. Like, that first half, the Thunder couldn't even, the Pacers couldn't even get a shot off. I don't know how many, like, shot clock violations or near shot clock violations there were, but I counted at least 2 or 3 in that first half. And the Thunder can just turn it on. And they have Hartenstein got some big rebounds. Chet was getting some big rebounds. Also, Miles Turner got into foul trouble, which wasn't ideal, right? The Pacers have a lot that they have to figure out going into Game 6. But it starts with Haliburton. But they got to figure out how Haliburton or not. They got to figure out that Thunder defense. Which, good luck with that. Is all I'll say. It's going to be tough in Game 6, man. I don't want to make hyperboles because there's or make declarations because this has just been such an unpredictable series. But man, it felt like the Thunder took control of it last night.
Our colleague Michael Pina had this in his quick turn gamer after the game story after the game last night. The Pacers' turnover rate was 23.7%. That was its second highest of the entire season. And the highest one was Game 1 of the finals. So, like, here's the Pacers, who I think that's one of their hallmarks is they're a pretty low turnover team. And their 2 highest turnover games of the entire season, regular season and postseason, are in this series against the Thunder. Like, they're just, I mean, we saw it throughout the Western Conference playoffs too. It was, I had joked about, like, in that series against Minnesota, like, I'm sitting there on the couch, like, I'm jumpy for the Timberwolves, like, stop dribbling. You're going to have the ball's about to get poked away. Oh, there it goes. There they go the other direction. Like, they're relentless. At their best, they are just absolutely relentless, and you can't penetrate, and you can't dribble, and you can't get anything done. And they were just freaking locked in last night. And
it's one thing to see it on TV, but to see that shit in person is just diabolical, man.
And especially in Oklahoma, where every one of those stops, there's just this freaking explosion in the arena. It's just, they're just really impressive. Like, we've seen some great defensive teams over the years, but I don't know that there's one where it's as emphatic and as relentless as this one, where you almost are feeling sorry for the other team that they just can't even make a pass or a dribble without the ball being poked away and it's, fast break the other direction. I think somewhere along the way here, the Thunder just, it's not that they woke up, right? Like, Game 1 was like a rough end for them. They dominated the game. They lost anyway. Kind of a dud in Game 3, enough so that a lot of people thought, okay, the Pacers are actually going to win this series. Like, a lot of people, including some of our colleagues, expected the Pacers to win Game 4. But I think somewhere along the way, the Thunder kind of like found their identity again. Like, all right, like we're just going to lock these guys down, and that's going to generate our offense, and we'll just go from there. And the last couple of games have just been super impressive.
Man, it's you can't take a finals game for granted, man. I know the Pacers are just kicking their ass that they just couldn't close out Game 4, man, because you just can't give away that type of game. Who wins Game 6, buddy?
Don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but this certainly feels like the Thunder are ready to close out. And then some of that, too, is just like we don't know what Haliburton's ability will be physically on Thursday night. And so based on what we saw last night, based on the momentum that it feels like, and momentum's a funny thing, right? Like, this is total like overreaction theater. We do this in every single series all the time. The momentum seems like it's with one team right up until the point where.
Are you saying we're hacks, man? Are you calling us hacks? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm saying we're human, Logan.
Okay.
All right. All of us, media, fans, everybody, we all overreact to the latest thing we saw. It's a thing. But the Thunder seem to have found that gear again. And on top of it, and also, you know, they've won in Indy. That's like, I don't think winning on the road is an issue for them at all. And more than anything, it's the doubts about Haliburton. Like the story of this postseason in a lot of ways has been the Pacers just defying the odds to get here at all. Like, and yes, to those who Thunder fans who are annoyed, especially because I think it was part of the headline on one of my Tyrese stories last week about like the story of the season being the Pacers. Like there's a lot to the idea that the Pacers were the story of the finals in the sense that no one expected them to be here. Yes, of course, if the Thunder win the championship, they are the story of the season. It's more that the Pacers are one of the unlikeliest finals teams we've seen in a while, and they're here because of Tyrese Haliburton's heroics. All these incredible comebacks, all these incredible last minute or last second shots and buzzer beaters. And so I say that to say, like, without Tyrese Haliburton's magic, which I don't think happens on a bad calf, it's just really hard to see them extending the series. And yeah, I think the Thunder are probably closing this thing out on Thursday.
The only thing that gives me pause on that is, you know, Thunder are a young team. It's really hard to close on the road, man. It is really hard, no matter what the circumstances is. But, like, this is a very young team. They haven't – it's one thing to, like, get the 3-2 series lead, but it's another thing to follow through on that promise. I still pick the Thunder, but I do want to hedge a little bit and just say, like, hey, man, it's really hard, and they have been susceptible to fumbling the bag, if you will. So, I mean, Thunder to 6, but it's going to be a tough one.
It won't be easy. It won't be easy. And that Pacers crowd's going to be really fired up, and they've been awesome. And I think, you know, you're going to see the Pacers at their best. Like, they're not going to go down without a fight. It's just that from the beginning, and it's the reason that most of us picked Thunder in 5 in the first place, the Oklahoma's just got more talent and depth and bodies to throw at you, and their defense is just ferocious. The Pacers, to their credit, have gone from a team that was this supercharged offense where defense was kind of an afterthought, and it was like, are they ever going to be able to, you know, have a sustained postseason run? Without that D, they have come so far as a team defensively over the last year or so, but it's just not the level of Oklahoma, like, because nobody is. And I just think it's too much to overcome.
Yeah, look at you, man. You're gonna if all goes the way you just said it is, you're gonna have cover 2 championship celebrations in Indianapolis. It's crazy.
Both in a game 6, 25 years apart. How about that? I did like try to figure this out over the course of the last week, just to make myself feel really old, because it hit me when we got to Indy. I'm like, man, I was here for the finals in 2000. And I looked around the room. I'm like, how many other people were here for the finals in 2000? And there's a lot of like NBA officials and like cameramen and others. My buddy Victor from ESPN, who's a longtime cameraman, who we go all the way back to the Laker days. There's some people, but I was trying to think of like print media, or primarily print media. And I think it's only 4 of us who were there in 2000 for Lakers Pacers who are here for Thunder Pacers. It's me, Steve Ashburner, who's at NBA.com, Sean Powell, who's NBA.com and NBA TV, and the legend David Aldridge from The Athletic. As far as I know, it's just the 4 of us who are here now, or will be at Indy, and we're in Indy in 2000. So yeah, that's weird.
Damn, you try to push back on my old jokes, and then you just like confirm them. It's fine.
I'm my own worst enemy. Been that way my entire life.
All right, we're almost out of time, but like, you want to give like 5 minutes on the Desmond Bane trade? You're the one that put it on there. We haven't given our take on the Desmond Bane trade. How do you feel about the Desmond Bane trade?
I mean, it was a fairly facetious suggestion, given that we were talking in the wake of Game 5 of the finals. But I mean, it's funny too, because like, and I'm glad that I think Tom Ziller already knocked down the whole thing of like, please, can we stop calling everything a blockbuster? This was not a blockbuster. A Desmond Bane trade is not a blockbuster. I think he said it was a, oh God, what did he say it was? Like God, fuck, what was the other like
Don't fuck up the shout out for Tom Ziller. He's a legend. Fucking look up what the fuck? What do you mean? How you gonna fuck that up? How you gonna, come on, man. Come on,
I just gave him the shout out. How am I fucking it up? I just forgot he had a great line about they weren't blockbuster. They were like,
you got to follow through on the line, my dog.
All right, fuck. Yeah, sorry.
I'm just saying. Shout out Tom. Okay, Jesus.
The listeners should know that because Logan's got a plane to catch, we did this a little early, and so I'm not at my sharpest. You expect me to remember stuff I read like an hour ago?
Put some respect on Tom Ziller's name. Is all I'm
just did.
Say.
Shout out to Ziller. Everybody's go subscribe to his newsletter. It's not a blockbuster trade. Desmond Bane's not a big enough name. Like, I know that a lot of draft picks change hands and stuff, but calm down, people.
Oh my God, bro. The amount of like fucking armchair GMs that were on the timeline after that trade, I'm like, bro, give me a break. Stop. Yeah. Relax.
Listen, I like it for Orlando in that, yes, they desperately needed shooting. Yes, Desmond Bane's a two-way player. He's pretty good defender as well. Yes, he has developed quite a bit as a playmaker, but they still don't have an actual primary playmaker. He's a great secondary playmaker on a team that still has no primary playmaker. That's not Paolo, and that's not Franz, and it's not Suggs. And I think it's still kind of a weird lineup. I don't think this suddenly puts them in the mix to win the East next year. I think it gets them further into the discussion. I'm still not completely convinced. And there's a lot of offseason to go. It's June 17th. The draft hasn't even happened yet. The finals aren't even over yet. It's weird that we have a trade of this magnitude, not a blockbuster, just significant at this time. But they've got plenty of time left this summer to do other stuff. And maybe they find themselves somebody who's a little bit more of a pure playmaker type who can kind of pull this all together and get Banchero and Franz Wagner easier shots and make that offense a little more efficient, because for all of the raw numbers those guys put up, it's not been an efficient offense. They've won on their defense primarily. And before people start proclaiming them favorites in the East, could we give the Pacers 5 minutes to enjoy the fact that they just made one of the most incredible runs to the finals coming out of the East that we've seen? Unexpected. And the Cavs presumably are going to have their big four back together. And the Knicks will probably, get a couple more guys on the bench, and they might even hire a coach at some point. Don't
forget about Cliff Sixers. Okay, relax. All right, come on now. Come on.
Joel Embiid might be healthy for
10
or 20 games.
Yeah, there you go.
So there's that. No, look, listen, I've been Mr. Optimist on the Sixers. So a healthy-ish Embiid plus everything. Cliff has given us the SMH chat text. There is a world in which the Sixers are a factor in the East next year. I will say it. I'm not even crossing the Celtics out. I know Tatum's missing the whole season, but let's see what they do. How much do they tear it down? How much do they make this a gap year? Versus Jalen Brown's still a damn good player, and they got a lot of talent around him. I think that it's still kind of a mishmash atop the East, and I'm not ready to proclaim the Magic the favorites on the basis of a Desmond Bane acquisition.
Before I get to my little armchair analysis, I just, to your point about whether or not it's a blockbuster trade, if this was 04 or something, would this even move the needle? Because I feel like the what I thought about with this trade and people going all up in arms in it is basically what I was saying about just the media landscape on the press box. We're just a transactions league now. Why are we up in arms? It's the finals are on, bro. Who cares? Why are we just up and Desmond Bane is a fine player. I think he's really good for I think that he would be better served as maybe a fourth or fifth guy as opposed to a second or third guy. But nonetheless, I do enjoy watching him play. That being said, I just don't think this should move the needle in a way that it's a fine trade for an ancillary piece.
Yes. He's a very good ancillary piece, but he's an ancillary piece.
He's an ancillary piece. We're not supposed to just talk about the fucking finals, man. What are we doing?
All right. So, because you've chastised me and basically falsely accused me of somehow demeaning Tom Ziller, I did just pull this up. So to quote Tom Ziller in his newsletter, we need a collectively approved name for really big trades that don't involve any players that have ever made an all-star team. It's not a quote blockbuster trade if many casual fans don't recognize the key player involved as a star, even though he is. Let's call it a Hollywood video trade then. So there's a very 90s reference for you that because it's been so long since I've rented a video, I couldn't even remember that Hollywood Video existed as the alternative to Blockbuster. So there you go. Great line from Ziller. I hope I've made amends enough for you, Logan.
You have. But thank you. I really appreciate that. Also, man, Hollywood Video, they used to have one in Alameda that was the one where we used to go to go get videos. There was a Papa Murphy's around.
Papa Murphy's?
You don't know about Papa Murphy's? Are you not? Papa Murphy's is where they would make the pizza for you, but you would heat it up at the crib. So when you get a big ass pizza, they would it's like not quite a half bake, but like they would put all the toppings and figure it out, and then you would put it in the oven. But anyways, in Alameda, they would have a Hollywood Video, and then we would have to go to the east on 35th to go to Blockbuster. But we would normally go to Hollywood Video, get us a little video, then get a Papa Murphy's pizza. That'd be our dinner for like the next 2 days. So, shout out to Hollywood Video.
Nice.
The real ones know. Anyways, my analysis on this thing, it doesn't really move the needle in any sort of way. I mean, I guess like the interesting thing though is, and one thing that I want to get your take on, Mr. Aggregation. What does it say about the Memphis Grizzlies and what they have going forward, right? Because it is noteworthy that they traded away a guy that they was supposedly a franchise pillar for some picks, right? I don't know who's next, but what I do know is Jaren Jackson Jr. has a big extension looming, and he kind of is who he is as a player. Not saying he's a fairly good player, but like I don't know if he is necessarily the guy that will facilitate a title and somebody you might want to. I could see a team not wanting to pay such an extension and go long term, and then we have Ja, who you have spoken about. And may or may not have gotten mad at the response of what you did. I'm not necessarily as mad as you are, but you have Ja, who has the injury history, has the type of game that isn't conducive to long-term success, hasn't really evolved. This might be may or may not be a rebuild on the horizon, don't you think?
There's a lot to digest on the Grizzlies side of this. And I don't think this is a clear indication of one direction or the other, right? Like they had what we all acknowledged was a pseudo big three. We addressed this on the pod a couple months ago where it's like, this isn't really a big three, right? They've got three very, very good players, but Ja,
it's like 2 1/4.
Reasons, what's that?
Like 2 1/4.
Yeah. But like even each one of them individually, like there's not a top 15 player among them. Like Ja's supposed to be that guy, and he hasn't been, partially because of injuries, partially because of just nonsense. Jaren Jackson Jr. flirts with all NBA, and so there are times he could be top 12, top 15. Bane is like more of a top 30 guy. So it's like 3 really, really good players, but not 3 absolute studs, and not 3 perennial All NBA types, or even 2 perennial All NBA types. And when it starts getting expensive, and when you're starting to like you've reached your ceiling as constructed, I think the smart thing to do as a front office is to say like, all right, I know it's hard. Like we found some really good players here, and Bane was a later pick and all this, but like you can't get sentimental about it or fall in love with your own work, and you got to decide, as I think that they have, make a sober-minded decision to say this is as far as this team's getting. We gotta give ourselves some flexibility. And trading Bane, there's a scenario here where, and it's probably the more likely scenario, where they're keeping John, they're keeping Jaren Jackson Jr., and they're using the Bane trade to restock picks and gain a little cap flexibility. And let's see what they do with it next. Like, are they packaging those picks to go get a guy? Are they, is there more kind of paring down to happen? I don't know. I'm very curious to see what step 2 is, and I don't think we have a clear read yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the Zach Edey ankle thing that's probably going to linger. I don't know how long he's going to be out. It's going to be a few months. I mean, we'll see how. Yeah, it's a kind of a murky timeline. I don't know, but to your point about the new NBA, if you're not in love with your team, you have to pivot quickly with this apron, right? Like that's just something you have to do. And I think that's just another example of that, right? I mean, I think that Memphis, and the reason why, and I don't have as much intel as Howard Beck, but just looking at the tea leaves, it's like there's nothing to suggest that like the Grizzlies as currently constructed can get past what they've been over the last couple of years. There feels like a ceiling here anyway. That would be the argument to moving Jaren Jackson or moving Ja and just starting from scratch, right? Like, you kind of are what you are with this roster. You are what you are with this team. And that's kind of what you were in line, I would think, when you said what you said during the All-Star break, which is like, this team kind of is who it is. It seems like it is like it's hit a ceiling. And if we have to, we might have to pivot based on all of the things that have happened over the last few years.
Yeah. And again, just to clarify, so what Logan's referring to for those who missed it at the time, but like I had said during All-Star break that I was told by somebody.
At the Real Ones Live show live in San Francisco at the motherfucking Punchline.
Which was awesome. That a rival exec had said to me, keep an eye on Ja this summer. And so then that went viral and aggregated and all the bullshit. And listen, like there's still a scenario, I think, where step 2 might be, hey, let's just do the tear down or however you want to refer to it. But the market for Ja is not exactly robust, most likely, given all the obvious things. The same things that might have soured the Grizzlies on him or made them concerned about having him as their centerpiece for the foreseeable future.
I know one team that would love to have him. And you know one team that would love to have him. Your old stomping grounds, buddy.
The team in my backyard?
No. The team that was in your backyard when you were in college, my friend.
Oh, well, yeah, but they would love to have anybody at this point.
I'm just saying there's a market for the guy. There's a market for the guy.
There's a market for the guy among, there's only so many desperate teams, and Sacramento is at the top of the desperate list, I would say. There are teams that are in worse shape than Sacramento, but not teams that are more desperate than Sacramento. So let me be clear about that.
I've never seen a team so desperate to be the AC in my life.
We don't need to go down a King's rabbit hole. I don't. My guess is that they are not going to trade Ja right now. And again, like, I don't think his market value is that high. I don't know how much you're getting back for Ja given everything of the last couple of years. And there are so many teams that are already set at the position. If you're the Nets or the Wizards, who are like, the most recent tank rebuild types, or Utah, is that the guy you're going out to get to restart? Like, I don't think
Absolutely.
so.
He doesn't really fit with Miami. Like, I don't think they would.
I could kind of see the Heat making a run at him, but I don't know. I would just say
he would have to make some drastic changes.
Yeah.
As a person to be good in Miami.
My guess at a read is this: the Grizzlies ain't hanging up if anybody called about Ja. I don't know how many teams are calling about Ja, and I don't think the Grizzlies are necessarily actively trying to move him, but they certainly aren't hanging up if somebody made an offer.
Do you think it would take, like, maybe with Ja, based on what we're saying, like they might have to send one of those picks back with Ja to sweeten the deal? It feels that. Do you think he's in that status yet of a player?
No,
and just with all the baggage and stuff, like, we'll take a flyer on him, but you might need to give us a fucking pick too.
I don't think so, but I do think that you get less in return than you would normally for a player of his caliber, based on baggage and injury history and likelihood of getting hurt again because he just plays this breakneck style and does not know how to slow down. So I don't know. I also think that when you look at the West right now, is this at least a slight reflection of where things are, where we're all talking about how just the Thunder look like they're going to dominate for years to come because they're so young and they're so talented. And if you're a team like the Grizzlies, where you're barely good enough to be like low playoff to play in, and you're not catching the Thunder anytime soon, might as well take a step back to plan for the next 2 to 3 or 4 year window instead of trying to chase the Thunder. Like, maybe that factors into this too. That would, like, I think that's a reasonable, realistic view of where you are with respect to the top of your conference.
Yeah, I mean, they got a front row seat in how good the Thunder are this season, right? Didn't they? That first round, it wasn't even close. Yeah, I think that's one last question before I get out of here. What do you think about the discourse around picks, right? Like, the first thing was, oh my God, Orlando sent 4 first-round picks, and this team didn't send this many picks, and this team didn't send this many picks. Do you think we've gotten out of hand with that? I mean, I do think that like it was a steep price for a guy like Desmond Bane, but also they had to get off of. They really wanted to get off KCP, and that takes a price too. Like I think that yes, it is tough, but I think there's more nuance, obviously, than what the timeline gives us. But where have we gotten with like how we think about, at least from an NBA discourse perspective, how we talk about picks and how they get swapped everywhere?
Like it's fair to say that like we're in a time when picks are like really valued again. Like the first round picks, there have been eras where they're thrown around like candy and given away, and there are times where they are prized like gold, and we are back to the gold version right now because a handful of teams control so many picks. There are so many teams that have almost no picks in their control, and the new salary cap structure with the second apron makes controllable, cheaper talent on rookie scale deals much more valuable. So when a team trades whatever 4 or 5 picks, whatever it ended up being in the Bane haul, like I think it's fair to say like, is it too much? But then you have to look at like the fine print of like which picks are going to convey or not, and which picks were, have conditions on them, and which picks were Orlando's own, and if Orlando is as good as they think they're going to be, and as some people think they're going to be, well, the picks that they traded of their own, okay, those are going to be in the 20s anyway, right? So you got to judge each one separately. And yeah, in this deal, I think at least one of those picks was just to take Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was a disappointment last year. So yeah, the discourse around picks can get a little bit overwrought for sure. My first reaction at a glance when that trade broke was that I thought it was too many. That's because like I think Desmond Bane's really, really good, but I don't think he's good enough to merit that many picks. But when you start to sit back,
is he better than Mikal Bridges?
They're different. I don't know. He might be better than Mikal Bridges. I think they've played different roles with their team, so it's a little bit hard. They're a little different. We'll get back to that. But I know like the comparison is there because the Knicks gave up a shit ton of picks and swaps to get Bridges from the Nets. Was it picks and swaps or just picks? Again, like it's too early in the morning. But it was a lot. Like the Bridges price was super steep, and the Bane price is it's a lot. Here's what I would say about that trade, and the reason why I had at least some concern, because I think they still really need a point guard or a primary playmaker of some sort. It's not so much did you give up too much to get Bane. It's did you give up too much given that you still have other needs and now you have emptied out a lot of your asset cash to acquire somebody. It's the same thing with Bridges. It's not so much whether Bridges is it's an overpay. It's you've now also like spent so much that you don't have picks left to make other moves that you might need to make. That you like you always have to consider.
But the Knicks and Magic are in two different places though too, right? Like the Knicks are betting on like that they're going to be good for the next few years. Orlando's very much trying to be in the ascent, and and I think in Orlando's case, you need those picks a lot more than New York at the stages that they're in at this point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think all of that factors in too, and I think the smart way to look at these things is that every single one of these deals, whether it's pick laden or more player driven, however it's constructed, you do have to consider the context of the team, where they're at in their trajectory, and what the factors are in getting the guy that they got. Because every transaction is its own thing. We always do this thing. It's like, oh, the Gobert trade set the market now, and now every star for the foreseeable future has to be traded for 6 first-round picks or whatever. It doesn't really work like that. Every negotiation's kind of its own thing. Like it's not that GMs won't reference or use those as a guideline or maybe use them even as a talking point in negotiations. But it's ultimately about the two teams that are in trade talks, what each one has for leverage in those talks with respect to the other team. And it's not so much about what other guys have gone for in recent transactions. So it's like the context of every transaction matters.
For sure. All right, man. I'm about to get the hell up out of here. I'm very tired. I want to go home. That was another edition of Real Ones. Back-to-back loopy Real Ones from Howard motherfucking Beck. This is just from a lack of sleep. Great game. It was great to see you, buddy.
You too.
Man, me and Howard had just a big hug afterwards after the game. Like, man, I'll see you when I see you, buddy. But it was fun. All right, man. That's been another edition of Real Ones. Shout out to Victoria. Shout out to Cliff. Shout out to Howard motherfucking Beck. Quick programming note. Me and Tyler Parker will be reacting off of Game 6. I'm sorry, I'm loopy. I'm tired, and we just did this in post. We'll have Game 6 of the NBA Finals on Thursday night. So be on the lookout for that. That is a special edition of Real Ones. That should be a fun one. Either Tyler's going to be really, really happy or he's going to be really, really sad. Either way, it's going to be entertaining. So tap in with that. Howard motherfucking Beck. I will see you next week with Raja Bell. Tap in, all the shits. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.